Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd, and I am a nutrition entrepreneur. But here's the catch. I have a full-time traditional dietitian job. My entrepreneurial endeavors are my side hustle. I've been making six figures through my job and side hustle doing things that I love. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the 45th episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, Leveraging LinkedIn. Today I will be interviewing Stacey Dunn-Emke, founder of Nutrition Jobs. Nutrition Jobs is the go-to source for dietitians and nutritionists, and the Nutrition Jobs blog is full of information and resources to help you in your career. Stacey is an expert in resumes, job interview skills, LinkedIn, and so much more, and I am so excited to have Stacey on the podcast. Welcome, Stacey. Would you like to share a few words before we get started?
Thank you so much, Katie. I am thrilled to be here. I am such a fan of both your podcast and the work that you're doing to get the word out to other dietitians about all the money they can make as a side hustle with blogging and all the other ideas that you have. So I'm super appreciative and I'm glad to be here with your audience.
Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and really how you became an expert in all of these different areas?
That's a good question, actually. So I've been a dietitian for 30 years, 30, for a really long time. And about 20 years ago, I founded nutritionjobs.com. And that was, at the time, one of the first websites that was out there, a job board for dietitians. And I ran that for years. And then I would sort of notice that the resumes that were being posted on the site, because it has a resume database, were not really like showing the value of the person that I think that they had a lot more experience or a lot more to say in their career that wasn't being said on their resume. So I sort of got a little more involved, I would say, in the last couple of years, working with dietitians to be in getting their professional profiles out there and really speaking to the value that they have and to the work and the work experience they've had, to sort of shout out a little bit more about why it is that they're the best fit for the position, why they can add value for that work or for the business. And then I got like really involved in LinkedIn, actually. That became apparent to me that not a lot of dietitians were on LinkedIn. And so I just sort of decided, we need to get a little more involved in LinkedIn. And I've always been a big fan of it. And I was surprised that there weren't a lot of dietitians on it. It's not as, it's not as exciting as Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. I totally get that. And, truth be told, I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn, but if you were to give me two different social media platforms to hang out on, I'm going to choose, probably not LinkedIn, but I mean, it's like, tremendous value. And so I just became more interested in that and helping other dietitians become interested in it. I also got involved with Fancy, with the Academy, and providing a lot of resume reviews. And so just sort of all that combined really cemented this idea that, dietitians just need some help in this area that they're not really wanting to take care of themselves or just need some more assistance with. So that's how I sort of got into it, really.
Yeah, awesome. And I love hearing that Nutrition Jobs is 20 years old, because I know I just found it a few years ago and I absolutely love it. I tell students and dietitians about it all the time. And I have it linked on my websites because I think it's so great. But how cool is it that you created it 20 years ago when it really was almost a little cutting edge where, a lot of dietitians weren't online at that time. So that's so cool.
I feel very, very lucky that the idea sort of came to me one day when I was trying to find a job. If people have followed my stories, you probably have heard it before, but I was in a position that I wasn't so happy with anymore, and I was ready to move on. And I was looking on monster.com. It had just been around for like a year, in Career Builder, and there were no jobs for dietitians. I'm like, that's not right.
Yeah.
There's lots of places for us to work. And so I just built it out. And then, it sort of morphed from there into something much bigger in what it is now.
Awesome. Awesome. So talking specifically about LinkedIn, what are some of the benefits for dietitians, particularly dietitian side hustlers, on being active on LinkedIn?
Yes, I'm thrilled to talk about that again because I am this, evangelist for dietitians to be on LinkedIn because there's just so much opportunity. So I'll take a little step backwards. And you think about why it is that you have a side hustle. It is to get this product or this service out there for other people, whether it's B2B to dietitian to dietitian or dietitian to B to a dietitian's, or B2C. So it's the dietitian to the consumer, whoever that consumer might be. And you think, you need to get that information out there. You've built this great side hustle and you've created this niche, you've created this service, and you need to advertise it. You need to market it. You need to get it out there. And LinkedIn, which has, I think it's 758 million members right now. It's all about business. It is the platform that's all about business. And so when you think about your side hustle is a service for business, right? And so LinkedIn is the obvious place that you need to advertise, to market, to shout out what it is that you have and how to get it out there in the hands or the heads of people. And so I just think, LinkedIn's a really great resource. So I think particularly for side hustles, because it's a hard thing to juggle. I think if you've got a regular job or you're taking care of family members and then you have your side hustle on the side, you want to have like really effective ways to market. And LinkedIn is all about business. People are expecting to exchange information, expecting to exchange services for money. So LinkedIn's all about business.
Yeah, yeah. And I like that perspective too, that it's like free advertising and marketing. And if you're not doing it, you're missing out. And even just those stats on, 758 million people on it, it's like, man, that's a way you could reach a lot of people. So
Right.
Yeah. Gosh, awesome. So I follow you on Instagram. So I already know some of your amazing LinkedIn tips. So, but I was wondering if you could share more with our audience about the 4 pillars of creating an optimized LinkedIn profile.
Yes. So if you step back and think about what is LinkedIn and what is your service, or what is it that you're trying to work on? So stepping back and looking at LinkedIn, imagine that it is like this great big spreadsheet that's a searchable database of information. And knowing that piece to it, then you can pull out and decide, like, how do I want to be found? What is my intention? What is my service? What's my vision for how I want to present myself on any social media platform, but in particular, like thinking specifically about LinkedIn? Who am I? And what service can I provide? So that's the first one. I think that's the very first pillar, is understanding from the perspective of a searchable database and a keyword driven vision. What is it that you want to provide? So that's the first thing. And that can morph, that can change all the time. The second thing is that then that profile you create based on the foundation of your intention, your vision for your service or services, because you can be many things, especially if you have a side hustle, your many services. That the next thing is you want to make sure that you have what's called an all-star profile. That is just the nomenclature that LinkedIn uses. All-star just means that you've completed your profile to 100%. And you can go on to your profile, you select your name, it'll say, look at your profile, whether it's in the mobile or in the desktop version. And you can look down at your little dashboard on the desktop version, and it will show you in your dashboard. I'm looking at mine right now. It'll have over on the right-hand side, it'll have like this little icon that says All-Star. So that means you just completed it. If you don't have a completed profile, then LinkedIn, well, I should say the other way around. If you have an all-star profile that's been fully optimized, LinkedIn gives you, you rise up in the search algorithm. So you can be found, your content can be found, your services can be found, your keywords can be found at a much higher rate, like 5 times, 10 times, 40 times, depending on the different section that needs to be completed. And so they will walk you through that, like which ones you're missing. Like, for example, you have to have 50 connections, 50 connections. You need to have your education completed. You need to have your about section completed, and so on. So you have that done, and that's having your, so that's pillar number 2, is having this all-star optimized profile. I think the third thing that I think is really important is then your connections, or the people that you're working with and connecting with, the other members that you're connected with. That becomes your network. So I've been on LinkedIn since I think it's 2004, and it was started in 2003. So I've been on it for a super long time. So I've got a lot of connections. And in fact, I go through every once in a while and call out some ones that may or may not be so significant to the vision that I have for my profile and my business now. But it's got a large number, and the more people you're connected to, the more people you're going to have that you're 1 or 2 degrees away from, to then connect, to give you a point of reference for somebody else. It's sort of, again, you sort of think about LinkedIn is just like this massive networking web, and who you're connected to can just connect you to the next person. So if you're trying to search for a job working as a brand ambassador or brand partner or whatever it is, and you're looking for who you're doing a search for somebody in that field that you can connect with and say, I want to work with this brand. If you are just a few degrees, 1 degree away from somebody, or if you're already connected to them somehow, you just have an easier way to send them a direct message. It's called InMail. It's a great way to connect with them, and then you are just more connected in general. So it's all about getting your connections and having nice connections. And then the fourth pillar is engagement. And it's very similar to any other social platform. It's evolved over time. I think initially LinkedIn was much more professional and buttoned up, and I think it's gotten a little more conversational, a little more loose, and a little more, this is who I am showing up at work. I'm showing up at work as all kinds of different things, and that's changed a lot in the last year. And so I think it's becoming a little bit looser. You don't have to feel so tense when you're writing a comment, or like, am I saying the right thing or not? So anyway, engagement is very similar to how you would do on other platforms. So engagement could be like direct messaging people. It could be sending them a message. If you have a premium version of the platform, I always talk to people just about the free version that's available to us, but there is the premium version, and you have some more options for direct messaging people. And you can comment on people's content in your feed. You can comment on what they're doing, and you can respond to comments on people who connect with you or engage with you on your feed as well, on the content that you're creating. So just engaging in a way that's professional, that's making sure that everybody's winning. That's sort of the same message that would go for me. So those are the 4 pillars. So engaging, connections, your profile, and then what your vision is for all that. Yeah.
Awesome. And while you're saying that, I went and pulled up my account. I was like, oh, am I an all-star? I've got it. So
Yay!
I was like, oh,
it doesn't take much to do it. But if you don't have that, then you're just wondering, like, why can I not connect with anybody? Why is nothing happening? Why am I not getting any traction? It's a very simple thing to do, but I always like, making sure that we cover the foundation of the foundation. So that's why I like to make sure that that's included.
Yeah, well, that's important, because like how you mentioned, how many more people could see you if you have it completed. So yeah, that's an easy thing that people could do just to make sure that they're getting the most out of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And even I really liked how you talked about how, like, when you think about what you want to provide through LinkedIn and how that can change over time. Because I was thinking, before I started my side hustle, my LinkedIn was all about, here's what I do for my main job. And then as I started becoming a side hustler and doing freelance work, I started adding on there that I'm a freelance writer, a speaker, because I was looking for more freelance gigs. And now I've transitioned to where now it's more like, here's, I'm a business coach. Here's my programs, how I help dietitians start blogging. So I do like that concept of how it can change and evolve, and trying to reflect of, when I made my LinkedIn, does it reflect where I'm at now and where I want to go? So I like that perspective that it can change, because I'm like, oh, mine has changed.
And I change my profile all the time. So there's 2 main sections that or 3 sections that I probably update and change all the time. First is my headline. That's the most important thing of your whole profile. And we can talk about that more in depth, but I change my headline all the time. The other thing I do is I make sure that I have all of my services, all my offerings in my about section. And I always make sure that that is in the first person narrative, because it's about me. It's not someone, not someone else writing it about me. It's me providing that service. And then the other thing is the featured section, featured articles, featured links, featured media, however you want to do. So I always make sure that is up to date and reflecting what type of service I am providing today or this week or next month, whatever. So it can always be updated. And back to the headline, I forget when that was. A while ago, LinkedIn gave me some special ranking. I was like the top 1% of the industry, blah, 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 for something. And I, oh, that's really cool. And so I added that to my headline. And so I think I had 1%, blah, 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 whatever it was, ranked 1% by LinkedIn or something like that. I started getting all these weird connection requests. I started getting some weird messaging, and I just what is that all about? And I realized it was because I had put that percentage 1%. It was like a sales thing, right? I was getting I was attracting the wrong thing. So thankfully I figured that one out, deleted that, and made sure I put in things that I want to be known for, how I can benefit other people. And also that was sort of boasting about me versus how I can be of service to other people. And I think that's important to know. You can say you're an author, but that you're an author that, helps people do, lactation consulting or, whatever it might be. So
yeah,
that was a good lesson. That was a good lesson for me.
Yeah. And it's also a good perspective about what you put in your profile. That's how things are pulled, and who do you want to find you, and how do you want to be known online? Because it's your account. You can make it whatever you want. So
you can make it any way you want all the time. It's dynamic. I know that a lot of people like to create it kind of like your resume, where you create it and then let it sit on the shelf. Yeah. And LinkedIn's much more dynamic than that. It's the dynamic version of your professional profile, of your resume. So keeping it up to date with articles, featured articles, or just in a newsletter. They have a newsletter option. For some people, they've got lives. They've got a lot of information. They've got lead generation forms that you can take advantage of as well. So there's a lot of dynamic stuff. And so for that reason, it's good to get in the habit of sort of updating it frequently, or just checking in to see and looking at other people's LinkedIn profiles and see what they're doing for some inspiration. And, you can update yours as well and keep it dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. I think LinkedIn is almost underutilized. I think so many of us have no idea of all the resources. I know last time I talked to you, I was like, featured section, what is that? So I started going to add things to my featured section, and it's a very powerful tool. And I think a lot of us aren't utilizing it in the way that, would really help benefit us in our profession and our side hustles. So, and I actually am curious. So how often do you update your headline? You mentioned you update it often.
Oh, that's a good question. I probably update it once a month. I might tweak it,
okay.
Or I'll take a look at it and make sure that it is still what I'm doing. I think maybe this time last year I was working more with people in their resumes, which I still do. I think I have gotten much more into some other areas, and so I just wanted to be reflective of that. I've been doing a ton of speaking engagements, all virtual speaking engagements, and that was something I talked about last fall, and had my headline reflect that. And I know I've been on the profile for a long time, but once I put in virtual speaker, the number of direct messages I get on a weekly basis for requests or for inquiries is it's pretty impressive what LinkedIn can do, and the power again of that. Again, if you think about it as the searchable database, what you put in the cell is what's going to be searched. Just like SEO, same idea, knowing what people are searching for, what they're looking for. And I want to make sure that that's how I'm going to be found. So so that I probably take a look at it and make sure that's accurate. My headline, monthly.
Okay, that's good to know. And I hope that the dietitian side hustlers who want to get involved in freelance writing, speaking, all of these different things are listening, because oftentimes that's the question I hear is I want to be a freelance writer. I want to be a speaker, but I don't know how to find gigs. LinkedIn. I love that.
Great way to advertise it. Yeah. And then, so in your work experience as a side hustler, let's say you're a clinical dietitian at a hospital. So that could be one work experience. And then also as a work experience, it can be you can be a food writer or a menu planner or a menu developer, a recipe developer, or a cookbook author, whatever it might be. That's your gig. you don't have to produce an LLC to put that work experience then on your LinkedIn profile. This is not a legal document per se that you need to, make sure that all the legal stuff is taken care of. If that's what you're providing, if that's what your service is, then you can list that in your work experience. And then you can highlight that in your summary section, your about section as well. And then your headline can have all those things. I just talked to someone the other day about this. She didn't know how to integrate everything. So she was a clinical dietitian and she was a food blogger, and there was something else she had done. So we just put all of those things in there. So it's okay that's the whole idea of being a side hustler, is that you're trying to get the word out, that you do all these things, that you have all this expertise, all this authority, all this trustworthiness, and all of that.
Yeah. As we're talking about this reminds me of when I was at a nutrition conference in Seattle a few years ago, and a dietitian was talking about corporate wellness, but she said this phrase that really stood out to me so much. It was on my journal, like the front of my journal, for a year. And she said, "They're looking for you." And when she said that, I'm like, they're speaking directly, they're looking for me. And I think that's so true for dietitians, is there are people out there in all industries who are looking for you and the services and skills that you can provide as a writer, as a speaker, as a consultant, as all of these different things. Like, they're out there, they're looking for you. And my takeaway from that, from what you were saying, Stacey, was like, let's make it easy for them to find you, because they are looking for you. So
yes, exactly. Yeah, just like SEO, like make it easy to be found. And I'm not the only virtual speaker, of course, that's a dietitian. Every one of us are.
Yeah.
But that I have it there, that they're trying to find me. Those are great words. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So, so many things we could talk about, but I do have a question about the differences between personal pages and a company page. So as a dietitian side hustler, should they have both or just one? What, if you could explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so let's step back. There's actually 3 types of pages you can have. So there's your personal profile. Everything starts with that. Yep. You have to have a personal profile, and that's just called your profile. From that, you can then create a company page. And again, you don't need to produce, a W-9 or an LLC or anything like that to say that you're working on something else, that you're providing a service, and that can be your company page. You can also have what's called a showcase page. And that is also another way, if you had just created a cookbook and you want to showcase it, you can have that page as well. So you have some options, but I definitely recommend that you have a company page, and for a lot of different reasons. If you have some sort of business, that when you then list your business on, or your service, your side hustle, your gig, whatever you want to call it, on your work experience, it will show up then with a little logo. It'll help brand this and give credibility to this company, to the service that you do provide. So it provides just a way to elevate that brand. Yeah. So then when they click on it, and it will, so if you can look at my website and see, so I've got my personal profile, and then there's the Nutrition Jobs has its own page essentially on LinkedIn, just like my name has my own page on LinkedIn. And so then when I click on Nutrition Jobs, it shows up like a mini website. It's just as dynamic as your personal profile. It's got service tabs up there. You can put different things that you want to include. If you've got a physical product or just a service, not just a service, but if you've got a service and a physical product, you can highlight all of those. If it's local or virtual, you can highlight that. It is a great way to have articles. It's just another platform to get the content out. And if your mind is like rolling right now thinking, okay, so wait, I got to post on Instagram, I got to post on Facebook. So if you get like Hootsuite or one of those ones, you just like click off, like where this content is going. It could be the same photo. Maybe you can, change the text a little bit if you want to. But when I post anything, it can either go to my personal profile. I can also put it onto my company page, my showcase page. And it can go in the feed. It can go as featured articles. It can go in featured media, a featured hyperlink, a link there if I want someone to opt into a download or something, and then I can collect their email address back on my end. So there's ways to do this without feeling overwhelmed. But marketing your product is it's so great with having a company page. I think those are like the main important things to have there.
Yeah. And my question as you're talking is, can you only have one company page or can you have multiple if you have
Oh
like
no, I
multiple
have
pieces?
multiple. I have multiple. I've got exercise jobs. You can do as many as you want. Again, you don't
Awesome.
have to produce, you don't have to produce anything from this Secretary of State.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. So can you let your listeners or our listeners know a little bit about this amazing free resources that you have made available for them?
So I think when you're thinking about your LinkedIn profile, you're thinking like, how am I going to remember all this stuff?
Yeah.
So I am a huge believer, and if anyone follows me on any of my work, I am a huge believer in checklists because I think like it helps you be creative, right? So of course I made a checklist for completing your LinkedIn profile. So it has all the information that I think is super vital, both the stuff that's included as your all-star profile, but also some of the other elements of your profile that can help optimize it. For example, your headline is not something that's part of the all-star status. It's automatically defaulted populated with your job title in your first company that you've got or your first work experience. And so that's just another thing to think about. And so I give a couple little tips on what to include there. You've got a fixed number of characters to work with, just like on Instagram or something else. And so how to optimize that. So you got your top card, you got your bottom card, and there's other information on there too, just to kind of go through the checklist and make sure you've done it. And that's available for people to download. And it is nutritionjobs.com/LinkedIn-checklist.
Yes. And I will make sure that it is in the show notes of this podcast. And if anyone just absolutely can't find it, shoot me an email. We'll make sure you find it. So awesome. And I think that's so wonderful. And I love checklists too. I'm all about a good checklist. That's a lot of the things that I provide my audience are checklists. And I think it's so helpful because you're right. There's so many things I'm sure people's heads are like spinning of, oh my gosh, I need to up my, LinkedIn game. And now they can do it one step at a time. So Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for making that and for offering it for our listeners. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Happy to.
Yeah. So, you know that we like to have action items in our podcast. So it's not just learning, because I want everyone listening, not just to learn. I want you to go out there and do, because, learning is great, but it's not until we actually put that into action that we could actually see results in what we want to do, our business, our lives, all the things. So what action item would you recommend as first steps for dietitians interested in improving their LinkedIn account?
Oh gosh. Well, it all starts with the checklist, the profile checklist. So assuming you've got that, I would, in hierarchy of importance, I think I would make sure that you've got a nice profile photo, one that really shows your eyes and that you're like fun to work with, good to work with, easy to work with, engaging. Just a profile photo. It doesn't need to be a professional one, but something that shows you in a nice sort of work environment. And then having a banner behind you that reflects and complements the service that you provide. So I think those two are nice because that just shows up. And then the third most important thing is your headline, like we talked about. Like you can include multiple job titles in there. You can include your sort of your signature service, what you're good at, any signature achievement if you're a cookbook author, whatever it might be. There's so much creativity and there's a lot of inspiration you can find on LinkedIn from other dietitians. Come over to my website and you can see who I follow, and you can sort of look at some of those names or people that you follow, look at the way their headlines are created. What's interesting is years ago when I started getting into LinkedIn and I started making some presentations and I was going to do some screenshots of people's profiles, that's when I realized I was clicking on some of them and they were suboptimal. Like, oh my gosh, we need to get more on the ball with this. And so, and back to your headline. So making sure that really shows what your service is. And because that headline shows up everywhere. It shows up on your comments. It shows up in Google and Bing searches. It's if you type in my name and LinkedIn, you'll see my headline. And so that's really important to make sure that the headline is there. And then going through the checklist and making sure some of the other stuff is updated as well. But I think that's the big one. And then also thinking that we didn't talk too much about keywords, but making sure that your keywords are also reflective of the service that you provide.
Yeah. Awesome. So much information. And I think that is great. So everyone just listening, make sure if you have not dusted off your LinkedIn in a while, if you have to go find your login information, reset that password, go on LinkedIn and see what you got. And I know in the blogging world, we call that above the fold. So when you go to a website, what is it that you see without having to scroll down? So it sounds like you need to make sure your above the fold is good. You got a good picture, a good banner, a good, headline, and then, go download the checklist and get to that. But I think those are great first steps for our audience. So, well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Stacey. It's been so much fun. If you could let everyone know where they could find you online, so that way they can start following you and continue to get even more gold and great information from you.
Oh, thank you, Katie, for having me. I'm super appreciative of the work that you're doing for our profession. I'm thrilled that you even asked me to be on your podcast. I can be found everywhere at Nutrition Jobs. The website is nutritionjobs.com, the Instagram, all over the place. So I've been around for 20 years. I've got the YouTube, the Facebook, the Twitter. What else am I missing? Anyway, yeah. So it's everywhere, and of course LinkedIn.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, thanks again so much, and I'm sure I'll have you back again sometime soon.
Yes, I look forward to it. Thank you, Katie.
Bye.